Good afternoon, everyone. Can someone tell me whether my voice is clear? And is this screen clearly visible to all of you? Okay, so welcome to today's session, and today we'll be doing current affairs from 3rd and 4th. And tomorrow at the same time we'll meet for 5th and 6th March current affairs. Okay, so let's start with today's current affairs, and today as usual we'll start with ESI and finance. Okay, so the first news is Flipkart partners with Axis Bank with respect to launching UPI services. Okay, so even though it's just a plain news regarding UPI connectivity that any business or any non-bank entity is doing or providing, so the most important thing apart from the news obviously is the concept of TPAP, which I hope all of you are aware of it in context of this Paytm saga that has been continuing recently. How many of you are aware of TPAP and what's the full form of TPAP? Anyone? Third party application provider. What is this TPAP and why is it essential in context of UPI? We have been doing this news regarding TPAP since I guess past 1-2 weeks. Good afternoon, Karthik. First of all, TPAP is a license that any third party, that means a non-bank entity, needs to take from NPCI so as to provide UPI payment services on their platform, obviously with the help of partner bank. And why partner bank is essential? Anyone? Why do you think partner bank is essential for third party to provide UPI services? Yes, payment aggregation as well as even if they are offering wallet services also. Okay, so to hold money with respect to within these wallets offered by any third party which is having this TPAP license, वो अपने पास तो रख नहीं सकते. They need to keep that much amount of fund, even though the fund is showing in their platform's wallet, but the actual amount of fund is holded by partner banks. In the Paytm case, Paytm wallet fund used to be stored in Paytm payment bank, तो उसको थर्ड पार्टी की जरूरत, लाइसेंस की जरूरत नहीं थी. बट नाउ Paytm payment banks have been put under various restrictions, so now Paytm is seeking third party application provider license so as to continue its UPI services. Okay, तो ये crux है at least in the saga that has been continuing, and what is the TPAP and how it is acting in the whole payment ecosystem. That's what we need to learn apart from obviously the mainstream news like this much. Flipkart partner with Axis Bank, ये सब तो न्यूज़ चलती रहेंगी, बट एटलीस्ट आपको पता होना चाहिए कि बैक एंड पे क्या चल रहा है. ओके, नेक्स्ट इज न्यूज़ विद रिस्पेक्ट टू India's extreme poverty. So the concept of extreme poverty we've heard in a lot of different times, especially in the lecture also. So what is extreme poverty? Anyone? So extreme poverty, it's like a absolute poverty, okay, in which there is huge deprivation of food and other necessities for people. And if I ask you what are the various countries in which there is huge number of extreme poverty, so you will tell me all the countries, especially in the Middle East or maybe in Africa, that is suffering from civil war and all those internal disturbances. So that is what extreme poverty is all about. So in this context, the World Poverty Clock, funded by organizations like International Fund for Agricultural Development and Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, okay, this came up with the data which tells us that in India, the extreme poverty is below 3% of the population. Okay, तो इंडिया में बाकी poverty चल रही है, situational poverty, you know, all those different kinds of poverty that we've read in the poverty chapter. But the case of extreme poverty, or the amount of population that still feels extreme poverty, is below 3%. And even though it's below 3%, and it's likely to be 3.44 CR in 2024, it's still a huge number. ठीक है, 3.5 करोड़ लोग अभी भी extreme poverty में है. So at least we have miles to go before we sleep. Okay, but at least just have an understanding of this World Poverty Clock being funded by IFAD as well as, you know, Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. Next news is regarding the progress of eNAM. So in context of eNAM, the news says that eNAM, the trade in agricultural eNAM, may cross 80,000 crores in financial year 24. Obviously 1 month is still remaining, which is the current month in this financial year. So based on the data that the eNAM has received throughout the year, the projection is that most probably we will be crossing 80,000 crores trade in terms of agriculture on eNAM. So what's the most important benefit of eNAM, which is e-National Agricultural Market? It's an online marketplace, just like how you have Amazon and Flipkart. So similarly, in similarity of that, if you have eNAM, so what's the major benefit that eNAM offers in context of agricultural marketing? Anyone? Brings buyer and seller together. तो वो तो APMC मंडी भी करती है. What's so special about eNAM? Farmers can access different mandis. Yes, correct. Correct sign. ठीक है. The restrictions which were there in case of APMC mandis, usually every APMC mandi, they have a particular region allocated to them. So any farmer that is farming in this region, they only have to sell their produce on APMC mandi. Okay? And then via APMC mandi, they go to different retailers all across the country. So when you have monopoly of marketplace, ठीक है, यहाँ पे बहुत सारी fees, commissions and all those things usually eat out the profits of, you know, farmers or the producers, and they also increases the cost for customers also. So to eliminate all this thing, all these restrictions, eNAM came about. And what did eNAM did? It made India as the single marketplace by connecting all APMC mandi, connecting various APMC mandis. And the total right now is how much? Does anyone know how many mandis have been connected on the eNAM platform? How many of you know about this? Approximately, what do you think can be the data? So this was one of the thing behind farmer protest, you can say. So somewhere around 1389 mandis have been connected in the eNAM online platform. Okay? So basically what does this mean? That any farmer, whenever they want to sell their produce, they can sell their produce across these 1389 mandis. ठीक है, एक मंडी में तो चलो आपस में लोग जितना कमीशन रखना चाहे रख सकते हैं, बट 1389 मंडीज में साथ में मेल कैसे बैठाएंगे, है ना? सो एवरी डिफरेंट मंडीज विल बी ऑफरिंग यू डिफरेंट प्राइसेस. द बेस्ट प्राइस any mandi will offer you, you just give it to them so as to get your the most highest price for your produce. And what does this do? This actually makes sure that price gets truly realized. ठीक है, कोई hindrances ना आए. So it is in this context, as all of you know, or take a rough figure about this if you're dealing with the question of agriculture. ठीक है, so roughly eNAM will be crossing 80,000 crores trade in this financial year. Okay, it was launched in 2016. It right now has 1389 mandis across, see this is 27 states plus UTs. ठीक है, in which there are 23 states and 4 UTs. 27 states में पढ़ लेना उसको केवल. And what is the implementing agency? Anyone? What's the implementing agency for eNAM? Not FSSAI. Anyone else? What do you think is the implementing agency for this? Yes, Vladimir. Small Farmers Agri Consortium. ठीक है? So in the budget also, Finance Minister said that eNAM serves 18 million farmers with a trading volume of 3 trillion rupees. Okay. Next news is regarding LIC Housing Finance plans to raise huge funds via green bonds. Okay. So it's a similar, or you can say simple news which says that a company is actually trying to raise money via green bonds. The plan is for 24-25. Okay, and it will be talked by a LIC board, LIC Housing Finance Board. But the most important thing for us from the exam perspective is the concept of green bonds. So what is this green bond? Anyone? And how is it different from any other bond? What's the difference between green bond and any other bond versus normal bond, if you say? Money raised through green bonds are utilized for green projects. Yes, correct. Okay. So the funds that you raise from green bond is actually earmarked for specific green projects only. So think about the LIC Housing Finance Company Limited. So housing finance company will be providing various loans because they have raised huge amount of fund via green bonds, and that fund will be utilized for providing loans to various houses. But in case of housing, what type of loans can be provided that can be called as green projects? Anyone? Usually green building, है ना? Installation of solar rooftop solar panels, all those things. Next is National Pension Scheme corporate segment subscribers. Okay, so this is an important data, and in context of similar scheme, we've also seen the latest data with respect to the corporate subscribers in the month of December. Okay, but the whole year data is much more paramount important. Okay, so that's why you need to remember this. So what does the news say? The National Pension Scheme saw a decrease of 21.5% in the number of enrollments in the corporate segment in 2023 overall as compared to the previous year. ठीक है, 2022 से लेके 2023 में 21.5% का डिक्रीज देखा गया है इन कॉर्पोरेट सेगमेंट ऑफ एनपीएस, and there are various reasons that we will discuss, but you please take note of this, and this is very important in context of objective in every banking examination because it's an annual data. ठीक है. So this data is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, which says that in this year only 158,212 new subscribers joined as compared to 200,000 in 2022. ठीक है. And the rest is that corporate component of NPS is voluntary, which all of you know because you've read about this scheme. But let's understand what's the major reason behind this decline. Why do you think? Any reasons? Why do you think this decline is visible in context of NPS registrations in corporate segment? But think in context of unemployment, lack of awareness, both of them are the wrong reason. अगर unemployment layoff भी इतना नहीं है, उससे इतना ज़्यादा डिफरेंस थोड़ा पड़ेगा. अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट कितना डिफरेंस आया? द रेट डिफरेंस बिटवीन अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट इन 2022 एंड 2023 इज इन दैट मच जो 21.5% का डिक्लाइन लेके आ जाए. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन इज the introduction of new tax regime. Now think about it. In the new tax regime, first of all, they have introduced the maximum exemption from 5 lakh to 7 lakhs. So whatever population that was there that used to earn more than 5 lakh rupees and that also tried to invest in NPS, अब उसको इन्वेस्ट करने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. बहुत सारे सब्सक्राइबर्स तो ऐसे हैं उनको ज़रूरत ही नहीं क्योंकि अब उनकी इनकम 6 लाख या 6.5 लाख के आसपास है, वो सारा एग्जेम्प्टेड है. सो दैट्स वन रीजन. एंड व्हाट अबाउट अदर पीपल if you're opting for new tax regime which is offering a relatively less taxation as compared to the old regime. अब new tax regime में you cannot claim exemption via investment in NPS, तो फिर वैसे ही इन्वेस्टमेंट कम हो गए. So this is the primary reason because of which you saw sudden decline. देखो धीरे धीरे डिक्लाइन होता है तो you can understand macro economic factors हैं. Sudden decline कैसे हो गया? कोई macro economic instability भी नहीं आई. 21.5% का decline is a huge decline. ठीक है? And it is usually associated with any policy change or any event that happened. Is this clear to everyone? The most primary reason associated with decline in new subscribers of NPS corporate segment. One more thing before we shift to another news. When was NPS allowed or opened for corporate people? In which year? Everyone? Yes, correct. 2011. Let's move on to the next news. Next is India Inc., or the short form for India's private sector, pushes for capital expenditure as capacity use nears 75%. So the existing capacity every company is utilizing at the almost higher stage, which shows you that the companies are actually utilizing most of its capacity to produce a lot more component. ठीक है, अब 100% यूज करेंगे तो ऑब्वियसली डेप्रिसिएशन के साथ साथ a lot more capacity gets deteriorated. So what does this mean? They need to put money to expand their productive capabilities. And even the government of India was also pushing private sector of India to push for capital expenditure, because as you are all aware about the trend of moderating growth rate in capital expenditure. आपने देखा होगा कि 2022 के दौरान जब बजट में the government of India announced that they are actually doing huge capital expenditure almost at the scale of 40 to 50%. But the next year the growth rate declined to 33%, and in the current interim budget the capital expenditure growth rate was announced at how much percentage? Anyone? What was the percentage announced in this year's budget in capital expenditure? %11.1%, है ना? So what does this tell you? कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से the growth rate in capital expenditure is moderating. So if the government is not doing capital expenditure in the economy, तो किसी को तो बेड़ा उठाना पड़ेगा if you want to increase the GDP in the economy by up to 5 trillion. ठीक है? So if the public sector is not doing so, then the private sector needs to up their game. So that's why the government of India, even the Honorable Finance Minister was talking about in some conference about it, that the private sector needs to come out in full steam with respect to doing capital expenditure. And this is visible in context of their actions also. So if you see the latest data which says that capacity utilization, because it has reached up to 74%, most of the top conglomerates of the country, for example BPCL, Maruti Suzuki, ONGC, IOCL, Tata Power, Ultratech, Amul, Adani, everyone is doing capital expenditure. हर कोई नए प्लांट में इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है. Everybody is expanding their production capabilities, and the most leading capital expenditure expanding plan is from Adani Group. ठीक है, नए plants खुल रहे हैं, everything that is happening. So just remember the amount of capacity utilization that the India Inc. is right now functioning with, and also they are expanding. Next is RBI nudge pushes NBFCs, microfinance institutions, to cut rates. Okay. So what's the news is the Reserve Bank of India was actually pushing the NBFCs that are particularly in the microfinance industry to reduce their rates or the interest rates. कि whatever loans that they are offering to various people, उसको थोड़ा rate को कम कर दो, even if they are providing it to the banks and then doing refinance also. Okay, so why the Reserve Bank of India is saying that since 2022, okay, the borrowing costs have been reduced, and even the net interest margin, which is the most important profitability, deciding factor of any particular financial institution that is also continuously increasing of these NBFCs. तो RBI कह रहा है आप पैसा दबा के कमा रहे हो, ठीक है, इवन दो आपकी बोरोइंग कॉस्ट रिड्यूस होती जा रही है तो आपका प्रॉफिट बहुत बढ़ता जा रहा है. सो व्हाई आर यू नॉट रिड्यूसिंग योर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स फॉर योर कस्टमर्स? ओके, सो RBI says कर दो यार, प्लीज डू दैट. सो इन context of that, you see close to 20 NBFCs, microfinance institutions, including these many, actually reduce their interest rates. So this is a perfect example of qualitative monetary policy. And what is this? What type of action do we call this associated with Reserve Bank of India? When Reserve Bank of India persuades these entities, regulated entities, to do any action. What do you call that? आप लोगों ने पढ़ा होगा in qualitative monetary policy. Yes, correct. Moral suasion. ठीक है, perfect example of moral suasion. अब RBI ने कोई regulation थोड़ा लगाई थी. They actually persuaded microfinance institutions, NBFCs, to just reduce your interest rates. कर दो, इन्होंने कर दी. Next is private banks outpace public peers in raising fixed deposits. ठीक है, so fixed, in context of fixed deposit growth, private banks are still at the top. They have raised 1.59 trillion in Q3 of current fiscal year, showing a growth rate of 4% quarter on quarter. ठीक है, whereas the public sector banks mobilized $1.1 trillion or 1 trillion rupees with a growth rate of 1.7% in Q3 financial year 23-24. So what does this tell you? And where can you utilize this much amount of news or this huge amount of FD still being the choice of various people? ठीक है, जब भी आपसे पूछा जाए कि why there is not growth of increase in number of people going into the stock market or in, you know, retail investing, ठीक है, at that particular point of questions, you can always quote that the choice of FD is still prevalent, which is visible in collection or, you know, mobilizing of FD grants or mobilization of FD by private as well as public sector banks. अब इनको calculate कर लो, almost close to 3 trillion or more than 3 trillion they will be gathering as a collective unit. ठीक है, बहुत पैसा होता है. अगर ये पैसा, इसमें से आधा पैसा भी अगर स्टॉक मार्केट में चला जाए, so how much more liquidity it can bring. Okay, even तो जाता तो वही है. Small finance bank registered a 6.9% Q on Q. ठीक है, so just remember this. Next news is with respect to pesky calls. This is unsolicited calls. आपको मिलती है ना, बहुत सारे ऐसे रैंडम नंबर आते हैं, आप उनको फ़ोन उठाओ तो नमस्कार, ये क्रेडिट कार्ड ले लीजिए, वो क्रेडिट कार्ड ले लीजिए, इवन दो यू हैवंट सब्सक्राइब टू दैट पर्टिकुलर एंटिटी, स्टिल आपको फ़ोन आते हैं. कोई भी रैंडम कंपनी आपको फ़ोन लगा देती है कि लोन ले लो, क्रेडिट कार्ड ले लो, इंश्योरेंस ले लो. ठीक है, और फिर उसके बाद से हम लोगों ने फ़ोन उठाना बंद कर दिया, कोई भी रैंडम नंबर आता है तो. ठीक है, तो टू रिड्यूस दैट थिंग, ठीक है, because that is considered, at least now the government also recognized that this is like a privacy, you know, violation of privacy. ठीक है, तो government has, you know, actually working upon this, and they have come up with this regulation which will be cracking down on such type of calls. ठीक है, so this is Central Consumer Protection Authority is planning to take stringent action against unwanted promotional calls. Okay, so they are right now trying to finalize a mechanism, and once they'll come up with any mechanism, we'll look at it. Let's move on to national news. So SJVN, okay, a state-owned power producer, its arm SJVN Green has actually got a contract of 200 megawatt solar project at the cost of 1100 crores. Okay, and it's in reverse auction. Or reverse auction is nothing but, the government usually offers this 200 megawatt project in which they ask companies to provide how much money they will be providing to the government with respect to this project. तो जो सबसे ज़्यादा पैसा देगा उसका चूज कर लिया जाएगा. ये रिवर्स ऑक्शन, नथिंग इज देयर. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज प्राइम मिनिस्टर फ्लैग्स ऑफ first oil tanker from Krishna Godavari Basin. So how many of you remember this news when ONGC was actually, was searching for, or was actually, choosing, or was, producing oil from KG Basin, and this news was, I guess, came in the start of this year, around the first week of January. How many of you remember that? है ना. तो देखो ऐसे याद रहता है. अगर उस समय आप लोगों ने ये न्यूज़ पढ़ा था तो दिस इज इन कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ दैट न्यूज़ ओनली दैट द फर्स्ट ऑयल टैंकर फ्रॉम दैट केजी बेसिन हैज़ बीन फ्लैग्ड ऑफ बाय प्राइम मिनिस्टर. तो 2 महीने में उन्होंने ऑयल प्रोड्यूस करना स्टार्ट कर दिया वहाँ पर. सो यू कैन सी प्राइम मिनिस्टर फ्लैग्ड ऑफ फर्स्ट टैंकर, द नेम ऑफ विच इज स्वर्ण सिंधु. ठीक है. एंड दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ इंडियाज एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी. ठीक है. तो ESI सेक्शन के लिए इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड द टर्म्स सच एज स्वर्ण सिंधु, दोज थिंग्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर वेरियस phase 1 objective GA also. तो मेक श्योर यू रिमेंबर दैट. ठीक है. फ्रॉम द स्टेट ओन्ड ONGC's KG deep water block. So this whole project was developed with an investment of 41,000 crores and it also known as KG DWN 98-2. Interest is obviously this will reduce India's dependency on crude and liquefied natural gas imports. Next is India's railway plans. ठीक है. So our railway minister was actually talking in some conference and he actually came, discussed about various plans of government of India in context of railways. So he said that government plans to manufacture 1,000 new generation Amrit Bharat trains. Okay. So this is one thing. The next thing is that the government of India is also researching or planning to make trains that can run on 250 kilometers per hour. ठीक है. They are also trying to export Vande Bharat trains within the next 5 years. Okay. And the notable achievement of the government is building of highest railway bridge on Chenab River and first underwater river tunnel in the Kolkata Metro. Next is the National Financial Reporting Authority engagement with companies. So this is just a plain simple news in which the National Financial Reporting Authority is saying that whenever we find any issue with financial statement of any companies, usually the procedure is that this NFRA directly go to the auditor who have actually audited that financial statement first. तो उनसे वो पूछते हैं कि आपने ध्यान से क्यों नहीं देखा, कोई डिस्क्रिपेंसी है तो क्या डिस्क्रिपेंसी आपने नोटिफाइड क्यों नहीं किया. Okay, but the NFRA is also saying despite this traditional method we will also directly engage with the companies and the various department within the companies responsible for creating these financial statements. ठीक है. Next is New Press and Registration of Periodicals Act 2001 replaces the earlier Old Press and Registration of Books Act 1867. So this is in context of registration of publishers. So the government of India says that we are actually created a new portal called Press Seva portal. Okay. So from March 1st, registration of newspapers and periodicals now you have to do from Press Seva portal. Okay. Another change has been the Registrar of Newspapers for India has been renamed as Press Registrar General of India. Next is Google's application delisting cannot be allowed. So that's what the Minister of Electronics and Information Technology said. I hope all of you are aware of this Google delisting issue. The main issue was obviously the huge commission, imposed by Google just because he is the owner of the Play Store upon which you are listing your application over there. Okay? Yesterday only we've discussed this issue in a huge or comprehensive manner. I don't think I need to explain it again. But if you have any issue, feel free to ask. और इसमें कुछ नहीं है. Government is saying कि we will talk with the Google representatives, okay, and we'll make sure that delisting does not happen. Even though the companies did not get any relief from Supreme Court because Supreme Court didn't do anything with respect to, Google's action. क्योंकि वो उनके legal terms में legality में कोई issue नहीं है, but on the face of it, issue is very substantial. Next is Patanjali Organic Research Institute in Haridwar is actually researching for making sure that can they transform sludge from sewage treatment plants into biosolid for natural farming. Okay. So this project, the title of which is Study the Management of Sludge and Transformation into Biosolids, was actually offered or approved by National Mission for Clean Ganga's Executive Committee, and it has been offered to Patanjali Organic Research Institute. Okay, the budget for this is 50 lakh, time period 12-month duration, and this is only a research kind of thing right now, but it's funded under National Ganga Plan or National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, so that's why it's important. Next is Prime Minister unveiled various developmental projects worth 21,400 crores in Bihar's Aurangabad district. ठीक है, अब आपको याद तो करने पड़ेंगे. प्राइम मिनिस्टर इलेक्शन के टाइम पे बहुत जगह जाएंगे, डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट्स को अप्रूव करेंगे. सो बहुत सारे डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट्स आए. ऑब्वियसली नॉट एवरीथिंग यू नीड टू रिमेंबर, बट इफ द प्रोजेक्ट्स दैट यूजुअली सेज कि फर्स्ट टाइम कर रहे हैं, है ना, it's of huge national importance, तो make sure you at least have an understanding और at least एक दो बार तो उसको देख ही लो. ठीक है. So first is include national highway projects worth 80,000 crores and the 6-lane bridge over the Ganga. In West Bengal, 15,000 crores worth of projects and foundation stone for Unity Mall in Patna. Okay. Next is regarding Kaleshwaram lift irrigation projects in Telangana. Okay. Even though in the news this project came because of some lapses that is happening within this project, but the most important thing that you need to remember is that this project is happening in Telangana and on the Godavari river. ठीक है, तो ये basic static type का current affairs है. Make sure you remember this. So this is with respect to GI tag. So the famous Kattak Rupa Tarakasi, known for its silver filigree work, has been granted geographic indication by registry in Chennai. ठीक है, make sure you remember the name, recent GI tag, and apart from this various other products have also received GI tag. Bangla muslin, ठीक है, Narasapur crochet lace products from Andhra Pradesh, Ratlam Lesun, Tripura Risa textile, Hyderabad bangles, Majuli mask of Assam Majuli manuscript painting. ठीक है, तो देखो at least have a glance over these names, because if probably any question will come related to GI tag in the paper, if you have at least glance over it 2 to 3 times, तो at least option में दिख जाएगा आपको. ठीक है, एकदम एक्टिवली आपको भले याद ना रहे, लेकिन अगर आपने इसको 3-4 बार देख रखा है तो अगर सामने ऑप्शन दिखेगा तो आपको याद आ जाएगा. GI टैग हेल्प, जैसे होता है ना कि आप बोलते हो कि ऑर्गेनिक टैग देने का क्या मतलब है. ठीक है, ज्योग्राफिकल इंडिकेशन टैग देने का मतलब यह है कि द मोस्ट ऑथेंटिक प्रोडक्ट. अगर आपको मजूली मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट पेंटिंग कहीं से खरीदनी है, ठीक है, अगर उस पर GI टैग नहीं है, देन यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस हैज बीन मैन्युफैक्चर्ड सम अदर प्लेस. Geographical indication tag, if you're finding manuscript paint, any type of, जैसे for example, take example of this रियावान लहसुन अगर मध्य प्रदेश का है तो ही असली है, अदरवाइज इट इज फेक. ठीक है, so it associates a particular geography to a particular product, making it much more authentic, or making even or giving recognition to that commodity as well. Next is international news with respect to India-UAE 100 billion non-oil trade. So the CII president saying the trade target is achievable by 2030. Okay, because of huge integration that we are doing with the UAE. So at least just remember that we have this target $100 billion, and this is non-oil trade, क्योंकि oil में तो anyways हम लोग का हो ही जाता है. ठीक है, and this is needed to be achieved by 2030. But the most important thing, और इस चीज का आप लोग ध्यान से रखिए, make sure in terms of international, आप इस तरीके से हेड बना लो. ठीक है, बिकॉज ऑल ऑफ यू नो दैट हाउ मच डेवलपमेंट्स आर हैपनिंग बिटवीन इंडिया एंड UAE, इंडिया एंड सिंगापुर, एंड इंडिया एंड नेबरिंग कंट्रीज, और एक्सटेंडेड नेबरहुड में आप मॉरिशस को भी इंक्लूड कर लेना, क्योंकि बिकॉज लॉट मोर डेवलपमेंट्स आर हैपनिंग, लॉट मोर फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट्स आर हैपनिंग बिटवीन दीज कंट्रीज. तो एक लिस्ट आपके पास बन जाएगा एट अ सिंगल प्लेस. ओके, let's move on to the next, which is, so Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has been appointed. In context of conferences, OPEC plus nations extends, cut to oil production. Okay, several OPEC plus nations, including Russia and and Saudi, they have announced extensions to oil production cut initially implemented in 2023. ठीक है, तो obviously जितने भी oil producing nations हैं, 13 members initially, they actually joined and made OPEC. फिर कुछ extra nations भी आए, for example Russia, and the organization was called further as OPEC plus. Okay, so all these organizations that are producing oil and giving oil to the whole world, okay, they jointly announce production cut so as to make sure that the prices stay profitable to all these producing nations. ठीक है, अगर oil prices गिरने लग जाएंगे because of oversupply all that thing, ठीक है, then the commodity will not be that much profitable to all these oil producing nations. So that's why they usually announce cuts. ठीक है, the most important thing is that you remember the static details with respect to this. So OPEC headquarters is in Vienna, Austria. It was established in 1960 and the OPEC Plus group includes 13 members. With respect to defense, the news is commissioning of INS Jatayu. This is naval base station in Lakshadweep. Okay, so Indian Navy will be commissioning naval detachment Minicoy as INS Jatayu on March 6th. So this will be our strategic naval base on Lakshadweep Islands. So just remember the name Jatayu. Next thing is IG Drones, a drone technology company, has established a factory in Vadodara. Okay. So where this company will be manufacturing various drones catering to various services needed by Government of India in context of defense as well as in administration also. So you can see 90% of the manufacturing will be for defense, 10% for civil applications. Then we have Seahawk Squadron. Okay, so Seahawk is a type of helicopter used by Indian Navy. Okay. So a squadron of Seahawk helicopters will be raised at INS Garuda on March 6th. And these are the special features of this helicopter, that it can be used, it has advanced radar systems, it can be used for search and rescue, submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare and maritime surveillance. Next, a company called Carborundum Universal Limited, Kumi, supports DRDO in localization initiatives. Okay, so this is a local company which supplies ceramic plates for bulletproof vests. Now with respect to sports news, in the Bahrain Grand Prix, okay, Max Verstappen wins for Red Bull, securing its 55th career win. In World Indoor Athletics Championship happened in Glasgow, okay, Miltiades of Greece wins long jump gold. Okay. In context of Rupe Prime Volleyball League, Calicut Heroes defeated Hyderabad Black Hawks. Saudi Arabia is thinking to host or submitted their bid to host 2034 FIFA World Cup. So the 2022 FIFA World Cup happened in which state? Anyone? ठीक है, स्पेन नहीं, कतर. And what about 26? Where it will happen? Does anyone know? Yes, Karthik, correct. And not only USA, whole North America is there. Okay? That means Canada, USA, and some matches will also happen in, I guess, Mexico also. Yes, correct. Next is Mexican Open title. So Alex de Minaur defeated Casper Ruud to claim his 8th ATP title in tennis. Okay? So in the World Championship in Singapore related to golf, Indian golfer Aditi Ashok came 21st. Okay, in ITF Women Tennis Tournament, Justina defeated Yeonwoo Koo in the final. And this happened in Gurugram. Next, with respect to polo, okay, so in polo, Chris McKenzie played a stellar role for Rajnigandha Achievers, securing 4 goals to lead his team to victory at Mayfair Polo. Okay. So with respect to Tokyo Marathon, Kenyan Benson emerged victorious. Okay, and even Ethiopia's Sutume secured first position in 2 hours 15 minutes. With respect to book, this is an important book, Why Bharat Matters, by Honorable External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Okay, so remember this name and the author. And with respect to important days, March 1st, World Civil Defense Day. The theme is Honor Heroes and Promote Safety Skills. Zero Discrimination Day, to protect everyone's health, protect everyone's right. International Wheelchair Day, transforming futures through inclusive innovation. Then we have March 3, World Wildlife Day, connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. Then we have World Hearing Day also on the same March 3, the theme being changing mindsets, let's make ear and hearing care a reality for all. Okay? So this is all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, otherwise we'll wind up. And tomorrow at the same time, 3:30, we'll meet for the 5th and 6th March current affairs. Okay? Saying it will also be covered. Okay, don't worry. So Yash, green building, you call it to a building which generates its own electricity. Okay? For example, think about any house, okay, and the average monthly consumption it has is, let's say, 1000 watt. This is average monthly consumption. Okay, so instead of taking this whole electricity from the grid, okay, just install, if this building installed solar rooftop panels, okay, some small scale wind generators also, so that these entities could generate this much amount of electricity, तो फिर इस बिल्डिंग का नेट कार्बन इमिशन हाउ मच इट इज, ठीक है. So that is what you call green building, a building which has either zero carbon emission or positive, carbon footprint. or whatever consumption it is doing, it is generated by renewable energy and not electricity from the grid, which is usually carbon intensive. Is this clear? How capital expenditure is different from revenue expenditure? देखो, it all depends upon the transfer of asset and liabilities or the change in asset or liabilities. If your expenditure involves any increase in asset or any reduction in liability, ठीक है, कहीं asset और liability का अगर change आ रहा है, then you will call it capital expenditure. ठीक है, और जो एक्सपेंडिचर करने से कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं पड़ रहा है गवर्नमेंट के फ्यूचर ऑब्लिगेशन या फ्यूचर एसेट्स पर, देन यू कॉल इट रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर. तो बात केवल इनकी है. फॉर एग्जांपल, टेल मी कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ ब्रिज दैट द गवर्नमेंट डिड ओवर चिनाब रिवर, ठीक है, जो सबसे वर्ल्ड का हाईएस्ट ब्रिज है. टेल मी वेदर दिस इज कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर. थिंक अबाउट दिस फॉर्मूला. Why do you think it's a revenue expenditure? Don't you think this is an asset for the country? या इसमें आपको समझ नहीं आएगा. चलो, थिंक अबाउट द हाईवेज. गवर्नमेंट एक्चुअली put money for increasing construction of highways. Now will this be called capital expenditure or revenue expenditure? और हाईवे पे तो टोल भी होते हैं. So it's an asset because it is giving you money. Now think about, let's say, that the government of India has actually repaid the principal of the loan taken by it to the lender. So what is that? Will this come under revenue expenditure or capital expenditure? And why is it a capital expenditure? Because it reduces your liability or future obligation. है ना? Now tell me, what about government giving salaries to, government officers? What's this? Revenue or capital? And why do you think revenue is it? Simple सा concept है. Is it creating any future asset or future liabilities? No. आपने सैलरी दे दी, उसके बाद आप उनसे कुछ एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हो या आपको उनको कुछ देना है और नहीं देना ना. That's a revenue expenditure. Now utilize that same concept and tell me this. And this question is not for all those people who are there in the course. उन्होंने तो पढ़ ही रखा है क्वेश्चन. Will this be a capital expenditure or revenue expenditure? And this is central government we are talking about. What about others? अब क्लास वाले भी बोल सकते हैं, बोलिए. And please tell why is it revenue? What do you mean by grant? देखो, दिस इज ग्रांट और लाइक अ ट्रांसफर पेमेंट. अगर इसको मैं चेंज करके ये बोल दूं कि पीएम किसान में जो 6,000 रुपए सरकार दे रही है, एंड लेट्स ईयर मार्क इट फॉर क्रिएशन ऑफ कैपिटल एसेट फॉर फार्मर्स, तो फायदा किसका हो रहा है? फार्मर्स का. ये एसेट बेनिफिट किसको देगा? फार्मर्स को. इज सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ऑन इट्स बैलेंस शीट इज गेटिंग एनी एसेट? ये कैपिटल एसेट्स बनेंगे किसके लिए? स्टेट्स के लिए. बट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की जो बैलेंस शीट बनेगी, बजट बनेगा, वहां पर इन एसेट से कुछ रेवेन्यू आ रहा है क्या? नहीं आ रहा है. इट्स जस्ट अ ग्रांट. ओके, सो डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड that why is it a revenue expenditure? So I hope this concept of revenue and capital expenditure is clear to all of you. Any confusion? Yes, it will be capex for state, क्योंकि उनकी बैलेंस शीट में it will be providing them capital, और मतलब फ्यूचर एसेट्स हैं, सो दे विल बी प्रोवाइडिंग मतलब फ्यूचर इनकम फॉर स्टेट्स ऑल्सो, तो उनके लिए कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर इट विल बी. यशवर्धन, देखो, दीज एडवांस एस्टिमेट्स डेटा आर इंपॉर्टेंट. आई विल टेल यू व्हाई. देखो, एक तो एग्जाम के पास है तो आपको वैसे भी पढ़ना है, और रिवाइज्ड एस्टिमेट्स आने के लिए फाइनेंशियल ईयर को खत्म होना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, प्लस 2 months लैग. दैट विल बी लेट्स से अप टू जून और मे बी जुलाई. तो तब डेटा कंप्लीट करेंगे. बट द लेटेस्ट एडवांस डेटाज आर ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज द क्वेश्चंस इवन इन नाबार्ड एंड आरबीआई हैव ऑलरेडी कम विद रिस्पेक्ट टू सच टाइप ऑफ डेटा. सो यू नीड टू रिमेंबर दैट. Anything else? Anyone? Karthik, with respect to agricultural current affairs, okay, first of all, just after RBI, and we will be launching agriculture current affairs sessions also, but till then you can just focus on PIB and all the schemes that are important from the syllabus perspective. Okay, topics, just your syllabus is very much important. Anything you find in your news that is even remotely related to your syllabus, make sure you remember that. Karthik, did you do that course last year? And we had these descriptive sessions over there. Okay? Just check your model answer and the topics will be related to them only. Anything else, everyone? Chalo. Thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Till then, keep revising these current affairs.